Imagine yourself alone in the frozen forests of Canada, surrounded by the oppressive silence of winter. Suddenly, a piercing scream rips through the night, followed by a howl that seems to come from another world. What you just heard might very well be the cry of the Wendigo, a creature so terrifying it haunted the indigenous peoples of North America for centuries. And trust me, even if you think you've heard its name before, you're not ready for the journey we're about to take. We'll unravel its ancient origins, explore its cultural transformations, and even understand how this entity found its way into our collective psyche and popular culture. Buckle up, because what comes next will make you look at forests with fresh eyes, and maybe even your dinner guest a little differently, just in case. The Wendigo, this emblematic figure of Algonquian legends, Native American tribes that lived in the northern United States and Canada, is far more than just a fairground monster. It's the embodiment of the ultimate taboo, of insatiable hunger, and of the terrifying transformation from human to beast. Picture this: winters are harsh, food is scarce, and famine looms over the northeastern indigenous communities, Ojibwe, Cree, Inuit, and other Algonquian nations. It's in this context of extreme survival that the Wendigo myth took root, as a terrifying warning against the dangers of cannibalism, but also against greed and excess in all its forms. According to the stories, a man or woman who gave in to the temptation of eating human flesh, often in desperate times of famine, risked transforming into a Wendigo. And trust me, this transformation wasn't glamorous. The body stretches, the skin tightens and becomes parchment-like, clinging to protruding bones. The eyes sink deep into their sockets, cold and lifeless. Lips disappear, revealing sharp teeth ready to tear apart flesh. And the worst part? An eternal hunger, a craving for human flesh that can never be satisfied, not even after devouring entire villages. It's a vicious cycle. The more it eats, the hungrier it becomes. Physical descriptions of the Wendigo vary slightly from tribe to tribe, but the essence remains the same. It's a nightmare creature, often described as an emaciated giant with grayish skin, sometimes with patches of sparse fur, glowing ember-like eyes, and a stench of decay that announces its presence. Some stories speak of a heart of ice, a frozen soul, symbolizing its inhumanity and coldness. It can be incredibly fast, crossing snowy forests without leaving a trace, or in contrast, moving with a slow, heavy stride that chills the blood. Imagine running into that on a lonely path. I'd break my personal best for the 100 meters, no doubt. For the Algonquian nations, the Wendigo isn't just a physical monster. It's also a spirit, an entity that can possess humans, driving them to unthinkable acts. It's a force of nature, as merciless as the winters it embodies. But the Wendigo didn't stay confined to oral traditions of the First Nations. It evolved, adapted, and carved its way into modern imagination. And to make sure you don't miss our explorations of the darkest myths and legends, and to avoid turning into a Wendigo from skipping our videos, subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're counting on you to grow our family of explorers. One of the most intriguing manifestations of the myth is Wendigo psychosis, a recognized cultural condition that appeared among Algonquian peoples. Those affected developed an irresistible craving for human flesh, intense paranoia, and a fear of turning into a Wendigo themselves. It often started with lethargy, nausea, and disgust for ordinary food, while developing a voracious appetite for human flesh. The condition was so serious, it was sometimes treated as both a medical and spiritual emergency, with the afflicted isolated and treated by shamans in hopes of breaking the curse before the transformation was complete. Rare but documented cases describe individuals committing acts of cannibalism, only to be executed by their community to prevent the spread of the curse. It's a brutal reminder of the power of belief and how myths can shape not only fears, but also our darkest realities. One of the most famous cases of Wendigo psychosis is that of Swift Runner, a Cree trapper from the 19th century. Living in Alberta, Canada, he was convicted of killing and eating his entire family during a particularly harsh winter, later claiming he had been possessed by a Wendigo spirit. This tragic
tragic case perfectly illustrates how extreme survival conditions, combined with deep cultural beliefs, can create a destructive psychological cocktail. In popular culture, the Wendigo has taken many forms, sometimes straying far from its origins to become a broader figure of horror, yet always keeping its essence of cannibalism and insatiable hunger. On the big screen, it's made notable appearances. For example, in Larry Fessenden's Wendigo, 2001, which attempts to return to the myth's roots in a modern context, blending horror with social critique. More recently, Guillermo del Toro produced Antlers, 2021, offering a terrifying and visceral vision of the Wendigo as an ancient, vengeful entity tied to environmental destruction and human misery. In the film, the Wendigo is a grotesque giant with massive antlers, emphasizing its connection to nature and its cycles. It's the kind of movie that makes you double-check your door locks before going to sleep. On television, the series Supernatural featured a Wendigo in its very first season, portraying it as a gaunt, fast-moving creature capable of mimicking human voices to lure prey. If you've seen the show, you know Sam and Dean have faced plenty of monsters, but the Wendigo left a lasting impression. Charmed also had its own Wendigo episode, though in a more stylized and less frightening way, transforming a character into the creature. Proof that even witches can have diet problems. In literature, Stephen King, the master of horror, explored the Wendigo in his chilling novel Pet Sematary. The cursed burial ground that brings pets back to life, evil and corrupted, is steeped in the spirit of the Wendigo. King uses it as a metaphor for loss, grief, and the temptation to defy death, with monstrous consequences.
Algernon Blackwood, a British author of the Victorian era, wrote one of the most famous Wendigo stories in 1910, simply titled The Wendigo. His tale, often regarded as a classic of cosmic and supernatural horror, depicts an invisible, elusive creature stalking hunters in Canada's vast forests. He focused on the psychological terror and madness inspired by the Wendigo's presence. Blackwood captured the essence of environmental and psychological horror long before it became fashionable. Comics have also embraced the Wendigo, particularly Marvel Comics, where it became a recurring foe of Wolverine. This superhero version of the creature retains its key traits: superhuman strength, hunger for human flesh, and origins in a cannibalistic curse. This adaptation shows how flexible the myth is and how easily it fits different storytelling genres. In video games, the Wendigo is often a formidable enemy. In Until Dawn, a narrative horror game, Wendigos are the main antagonists, depicted as fast, blind creatures with heightened hearing, victims of past cannibalism. The game cleverly uses fear and survival mechanics, forcing players to make tough decisions to escape. It's one of the best modern uses of the myth, terrifying yet logical within the story. Similarly, in Fallout 76, Wendigos are mutated, vicious creatures that haunt the most desolate areas of post-apocalyptic Appalachia, keeping their link to wild, inhospitable landscapes. They also appear in games like The Secret World, where the myth merges with urban horror and occult conspiracies. Usually portrayed as nightmarish, hard-to-kill beings, they symbolize decay and savagery. What's fascinating about the Wendigo is its adaptability, its ability to resonate with universal fears. Whether as a vengeful spirit, a collective psychosis, or a movie monster, it always embodies insatiable hunger, monstrous transformation, and that thin line between humanity and bestiality. It's a warning against excess, greed, and the devastating consequences of hunger, whether physical or spiritual. And even if we're far from the harsh winters of the First Nations, the idea of a creature lurking in the shadows, ready to devour us if we cross certain lines, is still very effective at making hearts beat faster. So, next time you take a walk in the woods, or hear a strange noise in the night, don't forget the Wendigo. It might be closer than you think, or at least the fear it represents surely is. And if you ever get a little hungry, I'd recommend grabbing a burger instead of anything else. You never know.